You may have heard by now that Halifax is one step closer to having a rental registry now that the bylaw has passed the first reading. And under this new proposed bylaw, all rental properties would have to be registered, and the owners and operators would have to have a maintenance plan, and they would have to keep it current. And a big reason for this is that a municipal staff report said that having this registry would provide a clearer landscape of the rental market in Halifax. And this would also give the municipality measures to inspect properties without just a complaint being filed, so they could just do this proactively rather than after receiving a complaint. Now, for the landlords, there would be no registration fee for this registry, and they would be given a grace period until April 1st, 2024, and those who are not in compliance with this will be subject to fines starting at $150 for the first offense, and then it goes up from there. So this bylaw would apply to all residential rental properties, so large and small apartment buildings, single room dwellings, single family dwellings, income properties, backyard suites, secondary suites, and short-term rentals as well. So my question to you would be, do you think this is a good idea? And do you think this will have a positive effect on the rental housing market in Halifax? Feel free to comment below what you think. And personally, I don't see it as having a huge impact. I'm actually not opposed to a rental registry of some sort, but right now, just based on the landscape of the rental market overall and the housing market, I don't think this is something that's going to make a large, positive impact at this time. Something I think is missed a lot when we're talking about these topics is that whenever there's further expenses that are passed from the city to a landlord or the municipality to a landlord, the landlord is then in turn looking to pass these on in some way, shape, or form to the tenants, whether it's with bigger rent hikes or whatever it may be. So from a long-term perspective, I don't think this is going to make a huge difference, to be honest with you. I think that this might actually create a bigger issue because these landlords are going to be looking to pass down, bringing things up to code and stuff like that. They're going to be looking to offset this with higher rents. And on top of that, this might create a bit more rent evictions if some of these older properties are being inspected because they don't meet today's code by any means. So it might create more of, smaller landlords selling. It might create more rent evictions in general, which is only really hurting the housing market in total as a whole. Now, I'm going to be getting into some more of my thoughts coming up here soon and some more details on this as well. But before I do, if you're wondering who I am, my name is Andrew Stevens, and I run a real estate team here in the Halifax, Dartmouth area. And last year in 2022, my team sold 118 houses. Now, if you like this content and you get any value from this video, please throw a like up there and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. And if you want to book a call or a meeting with me to chat about real estate anytime, you can do so in the Calendly link below in my description at a time when it's convenient for you. So this is something that's actually been talked about for a while, and the initial framework for this was approved by council in 2019. So I'm going to go through this Global News article. It actually does a pretty good idea of laying out all the details here. So I'm going to run you through this, and I'm going to give some of my thoughts as well while I'm doing it. So during the council meeting, Mason said he had concerns about illegal apartments and said buildings don't meet appropriate safety and fire standards and can have life-threatening consequences. So Mason said we've had people jacking up buildings without a permit, putting in illegal basement suites, not putting fire-rated drywall, and not being worried about having secondary egress so that if a place is on fire, they can get out. And one of those, he said, are one of my former students at NSCC, and they barely escaped with their life with his girlfriend. Look, I want to make it clear, I feel bad for the people that were in that situation, and obviously nobody should have to live like that, but I agree there's a lot of illegal units out there as well, but the reality is if these people are jacking up houses and putting in illegal units without a permit, does the city actually believe they're going to voluntarily register their property on this new registry system? My thought is no, they're not, because if you have the balls to jack up a house in the middle of Halifax without a permit, then you're probably going to have the balls not to register for this new registry as well. And even though these units may be illegal, and I'm not condoning these illegal units or these units that don't have proper egress and windows and fireproofing and so on, but these units that are illegal are still serving a purpose. They're still somebody's home, and really, if you take those out of the rental market and what's left, I would suggest that these illegal units are still better than somebody living in a tent in the middle of the winter in the Halifax Commons. So moving on, Councillor Pam Lovelace said having the registry would help address the power imbalance between landlords and tenants. I've seen horrific images of people living in quite substandard conditions and afraid to complain because they would be out on the street. The system that we currently have relies on people to stand up and be brave and speak out against the landlords. Now, I do agree there's an imbalance for sure between the landlord and the tenant, but I can tell you also from the landlord perspective that when you have a delinquent tenant, the landlord doesn't have a huge leg to stand on to get them out, and it does take a lot of time, and they're usually out a lot of money by the time they get out. And I can speak to personal experience on that, but also to a lot of my clients as well. So yes, there's imbalances, but it does work both ways. And my point is there are two sides to every story. Now, these tenants are going to complain and they're going to blame it on the landlord because that's basically what the government seems to be doing right now, when in reality, the whole rental market as a whole and the problems we're seeing are because the province has failed to put an affordable housing initiative in place that makes sense for developers and the province and for the tenants. So because of that, we're short on housing, and really, this rental registry is not going to help that, in my opinion. Now, in terms of these standard bylaws of, basic living conditions, these already are in existence, and the tenants do call 311, and it talks about it in this article, but it's never actioned. The city never actions on it. So that's part of the problem, is not just that it's not a registry, it's that they don't action these complaints as they come in a timely manner or in the way they should be doing it. So my worry about this is quite simple. I think more red tape means more smaller landlords who are probably going to get out of the market altogether, selling to bigger companies or just selling it off altogether. So not only is that going to put some strain on the supply, but a lot of these ones, as they come up for, sale, if they're a single family home, especially, for example, they're going to be sold and it's not going to be a rental going forward. So that's pulling rentals directly out of the rental market as a whole, and it's just going to dwindle the supply even further. So more red tape is not always a good thing, and that is my worry with this registry going forward for the province in general. Now, of course, the Landlord Association is fighting back. So the Investment Property Owner Association Director Kevin Russell said private rental housing providers, especially those who are small owner operators, are sick and tired of the government attacking them with more red tape and higher cost. He said high inflation and interest rates combined with the provincial rent cap are forcing people to sell their properties at an unprecedented rate, reducing the available housing supply. The investment property owner situation also said that implementing this would cost the taxpayers nearly $1.2 million over the next 4 years, which would include hiring 4 assistant building officials. Now, the backlash to these comments is that this is short-sighted. So Hannah Wood said, tenants who are living in apartments that have bed bugs, mold, and unsafe conditions are also vulnerable people. Now, again, I agree with this, and I'm not arguing against this. I do think there's a lot of those situations out there, but my point is, in my opinion, the city should already be doing something about this, and they're not. So the city has failed this, and therefore, everybody is blaming the landlords and blaming the developers, but the reality is the city is just as much to blame, if not more. In any industry, you're going to have some good apples and some bad apples, and there are no doubt some terrible, terrible property owners and landlords out there. But more legislation and more red tape like this is just going to make things harder for the small landlords and the owners and the landlords that operate in good faith. So these are the ones who are not trying to gouge tenants. These are the ones that are fair to the tenants, who keep it in a good living condition, who fix items that need to be fixed, and so on. And a lot of these people haven't raised their rent because they're not trying to gouge people. So over the years, they're way under market rent right now. And with all this new legislation coming down and all these new costs associated with the higher interest rates and so on, and higher maintenance costs, it's going to push out the smaller landlords. And again, this is going to take supply out of the market, and that's not good for anybody in Halifax. And in my opinion, for every good landlord that gets pushed out just means one more bad landlord will continue to make it work. If these guys are bad landlords now, it's not going to change it with the registry. They're going to continue to be terrible landlords. It's the harsh reality of what we're seeing here in Halifax. So all in all, I don't see this registry as being something that's going to have a hugely positive impact in Halifax, and I don't think it addresses the real problem, which is the lack of housing supply. So people can complain all they want that a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,200, but the fact is, if the landlords were putting these up for rent at $2,200 and they were sitting there for 3, 4, 5 months without them being rented because there was more supply to choose from, then those price points would come down. So we really, really need more supply. And honestly, I don't see that coming anytime soon, not to the extent that we need anyway. The government, in my opinion, should be spending their time and money on building affordable housing. If they want more affordable housing, they should build it and they should manage it rather than try to download their problem onto private investors with their own private money. And it's really a problem that the province created in the first place. Now, again, those are just my thoughts. I'm not opposed to a rental registry in general. I don't think there's a lot of bad that can come from it from, a general standpoint of having it. But based on the situation, I just see this as a bit of smoke and mirrors and not something that's really going to have a positive impact, unfortunately. But What do you think? I would love to hear from you. Comment below if you're still here watching. And if you are still here watching and you get any value out of this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support and have a great day.